plane hijackings or perhaps other terrorist operations?
I'm not prepared to make comments about any other items at this time.
Do you have any determination about where the plane crash in Somerset County might have been?
I missed
Lou Waters with Natalie Allen at CNN Center. We've just received some astonishing news from Martin Savage, who is at the scene of the rescue and recovery effort in Lower Manhattan. 5 rescue workers have been found in the wreckage of the Twin Towers. They are all alive. Martin Savage, are you with us?
Lou, I can hear you. Can you see and hear me?
I can. 5 found alive?
That's correct. Let me tell you, they have been hoping for miracles here as they have been digging for 2 days, and it appears that's exactly what has happened. According to rescue workers that have been coming out, as well as medical personnel, 5 firefighters have now been found alive. This is the remarkable circumstances under which that discovery was made. They were making an all-out attempt to find survivors today, removing debris. They found a vehicle, an SUV, that had been buried under tons of debris. When they cleared the debris away, they opened the door, and much to their amazement, 2 of those firefighters were able to get out on their own. The other 3 are said to also be all right. They were taken out. All 5 are alive and well. It is a most remarkable discovery, and you can imagine the sense of elation it is sent through those that are searching for further survivors. Again, the 5 were inside an SUV that apparently became entrapped when the buildings came down. They were found 2 days later alive. Lou?
That's astonishing. Martin, was there any indication that there was still life beneath the rubble, or was this just an occasional discovery?
Well, we have noticed today, first of all, it is an all-out effort that is going on. The activity here, as far as the number of volunteers that have been parading by literally in columns, is well over 1,000. We know that this is the big push day. They realize the time is running short. Weather's also a problem. They know it's going to rain tonight. They are making preparations for that, covering the equipment. They want to get any of the survivors out that can be found today, if at all possible. They also realize that if there are survivors to be found, they're probably going to be found underground. That apparently was the case. The SUV was discovered, and inside, the prayers of at least 5 families were answered.
Where are we now in the rescue and recovery operation, Martin? Unlike Oklahoma City, where we could see the inexorable damage and the horror of the rescue and recovery effort, we're not able to see it here, so we have to depend on people like you to describe it to us.
Well, essentially what is going on right now, I'm beside the West Side Highway here. It is one of the main corridors in for the emergency equipment. All day long it has been bumper to bumper with emergency equipment, with earth-moving trucks, with tractor trailers, with all sorts of equipment that is vitally needed. The sidewalks, in the meantime, have been the avenues in for the hundreds of firefighters, the iron workers that have been coming in that are working to cut away the tons of steel that are overlying the areas where they believe that there are survivors. There were reports this morning still of cellular telephone calls coming in from people who may be down below. They are trying to ascertain where they are. But keep in mind, the 110 stories that were the Twin Towers have now been reduced to a rubble pile that measures about 100 feet. It's very unstable. There are firefighters that are working with harnesses, ropes, and ladders, as well as other experts trying to get in there and not shift the pile. At the same time, when they do move it, in some respects, there have been steam pipes that have been ruptured. They know there's a danger, Lou.
All right, Marty Savage in Manhattan. We will be getting back to you, of course. The headline is 5 New York rescue workers found alive inside an SUV buried beneath the rubble of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. We'll continue to follow that story as well as how these people managed it for the 2 days beneath the rubble. Right now we're going to check in on the a motion that has come from the White House today from President Bush and others. John King is in Washington and joins us with the First Lady. John?
Well, Lou, I'm in the White House map room in the basement of the White House resident, as you mentioned, joined by a very special guest, the First Lady of the United States, Laura Bush. Mrs. Bush, thank you for taking time with us. We know this
Thanks,
is a very
John.
busy and trying time. In this moment of despair, I guess the country very much looking for miracles, I'd like to ask you something our Martin Savage in New York just reported. Your reaction. 5 firefighters or rescue workers apparently found still alive in the rubble of the World Trade Center.
Well, that's what everyone's praying for in our country, is that we can find as many people alive as possible. And I'm so thrilled to hear that some people have been found alive.
A rough emotional period for the country as well as for the President and yourself. You just returned to the White House from visiting some of the injured in the Pentagon attack at the Washington Medical Center. Can you tell us about the scene there, your thoughts, and anything you may have said to those injured?
Well, these were the people who were burned at the burn center at the Washington Medical Center. A lot of them are military or civilians who are working at the Pentagon. Their families all surrounded them. The staff there in the burn unit at the Washington Hospital is wonderful. We visited with the doctors. We visited with all the families. We saw the patients. And most of them are doing quite well. A number of them, of course, are still on ventilators from smoke inhalation, so they couldn't speak, but they could blink at us. And their families were surrounding them with love. And I told each one of them, and I know what I said was right, and that was that every single American is praying for them. And I think they were comforted by that.
You are the First Lady of the United States, but you are also a parent, and you are a former school librarian. I understand you have sent a letter to school superintendents around the country today asking them to take a little time to speak to the children, and you think parents should do that as well. Explain your thoughts on that.
Well, I actually sent a letter to children, to the letter for elementary school children and a letter for junior high and high school students, and asked the school superintendents to distribute that letter to the schools in their state. I want students to know that everyone in our whole country reassures them that they're going to be taken care of, that they're going to be safe. I know that as all of us deal with our own emotions that have to do with this tragedy, we need to be very careful about our children. We know that our children are suffering from the same sadness and the same feelings of fear and confusion that adults are. And so I hope that parents will really pay very close attention to their children, to be honest with their children about their own feelings, but also to reassure their children that they're going to be there for them and that they'll be taken care of.
Your thoughts on, I assume both you and the President have spent some time watching these harrowing images, commercial jetliners flying into the World Trade Center. Your own thoughts on seeing these pictures and then the devastation caused by these attacks?
Well, and that's one thing I want to say to parents, and that is don't let your children see these pictures over and over. Try to protect your children from these pictures of destruction, especially your young children, but even elementary school age children shouldn't watch this all the time. I think it's too frightening for them, and so I hope parents will turn off the television and think of something constructive to do with their children. Children want to help, just like all the adults around here. They want to know what they can do. Adults can give blood. Children can't because of their age, but children can make red, white, and blue ribbons for their friends to wear to school. They can write letters to their own fire departments and their own police departments in honor of the lives of the firemen and the policemen whose lives were lost in New York. They can figure out other ways. I heard this morning that one child was saving their pennies to send to the dependents of the firemen who were lost in New York. So if we can figure out constructive ways so that our children can feel constructive, but also ways that we can have a relaxed and calm atmosphere in our homes. Children are reassured by routine, so if everyone just keeps up their same routine, shares meals with their children and reads bedtime stories to them, and in a time like this, even older children might want to sit in the evening with their parents and listen to a story read by their mother or their dad.
Can you share with us your thoughts at the very moment this happened? You were on Capitol Hill. You were supposed to testify at a Senate committee hearing. The Secret Service comes up to you and says, Mrs. Bush, there's been a terrorist attack. We need to rush you to a secure location.
Well, like everyone else, I knew knew before I got in the car about the first plane, and of course at that point we weren't sure it was a terrorist attack. We just didn't know if it was some accident. But then I was with Senator Kennedy and Senator Judd Gregg when we got the news about the second plane, and we were watching it on television. I was not frightened for myself. I was, like every American, concerned about everyone who was in the World Trade Center, and also so unbelievably saddened that something like this would happen in our country, and that the disregard for life of the people who did this was so profound that they would harm people who were going about their daily lives. And, it's a terrible, terrible tragedy, and I know that I speak for everyone when I say that we're praying for every single person who's directly impacted by this tragedy.
The country, indeed the world, watching your husband at this moment. He has been President of the United States for 8 months now. This, by far, the biggest crisis he has faced, perhaps the biggest crisis any president has faced in quite some time. Take us a bit, if you will, into how he deals with crisis. Just this morning in the Oval Office, we saw on the one hand a steely resolve, if you will, of we will find those accountable, yet a few minutes later he was tearing up himself as he talked about the toll this has taken on the families. How does your husband, when we don't see him, when he's over in the residence with you at night, how does he deal with these things?
Well, my husband is very resolved. He's got a lot of discipline. He has all of his life. He has a lot of strength of character. He also is very caring about people. And in all the stories that we've heard today on the news, now today's news have the stories, thank God, about people being found, but also the stories about people who are looking for their loved ones and have no idea where they are or if they'll ever find them. Those stories touch his heart. They touch my heart. I know they touch every American's heart. But he has a very firm resolve, and he also has a lot of confidence about our country. That we're not going to be brought to our knees by something like this, that everyone, Americans are standing shoulder to shoulder. Just then, when we drove to the Washington hospital, all the people who were standing out on the streets were waving flags and giving the president the thumbs up. And I know in New York, I heard that as the relief workers drive in with their dump trucks and everything into the site of the World Trade Center, that people are applauding on the streets. And people really want to help, and they really want to be able to thank all those people who are working to find victims.
And finally, let me ask you, in your view and in your conversations with the president, how has this changed the country permanently? We obviously see more security. The airports are more open today. But how much freedom, if you will, do you think Americans will have to give up now in the name of security? I mentioned just as one example, in a Pentagon briefing a short time ago, the Undersecretary of Defense saying matter-of-factly that there have been combat air patrols flying over Washington and other major cities in the United States in recent days. Has this transformed us forever?
Well, I don't know about that. I certainly hope not. But I also think that people are very willing to be inconvenienced when they have to wait in a line now in an airport or something else, that now they certainly are more than willing to do that. I don't think we'll have to give up a lot of freedom. I certainly hope not. I mean, that's what makes our country so special, are our freedoms. I do know that Americans now realize that we can't take our freedoms for granted. Before, maybe we did a little bit, but now all of us really value the freedoms that we have and the many, many blessings we have to live in this great country more than ever.
We know these are trying times for both you and the President. We thank you for your time today.
John.
Joining us here in the White House, the First Lady of the United States, Laura Bush.
Great.
Now back to Aaron Brown in New York.
Thanks.
John, thank you. Mrs. Bush, thank you both. We seize when we can on good news and hopeful signs. And as we told you earlier, 5 firefighters have been found alive in Lower Manhattan. CNN's Martin Savage joins us now. Marty, what can you tell us?
Your number. No one would tell me a number.
But they're alive.
That's what they're saying.
We're just
Marty,
trying to verify the information that we have received now from 2 different sources. I'm sorry, as we were trying to verify, in fact, what is appearing to be an amazing discovery and certainly a heartfelt one. And that is, a short while ago, while they were clearing the debris, and there is a very frantic search that is going on right now, a full-out effort, they reportedly uncovered a SUV that belonged to the New York City Fire Department. And when they uncovered it and opened the doors, 2 firefighters stepped out, and 3 others that are inside are also said to be okay. That would be a total of 5 firefighters. That is coming to us from a medical person who was on scene, and also one of the rescuers who said he talked to the firefighters. They are said to be in good shape, considering the fact that their vehicle would have been buried and they were living in it for 2 days. Now, this obviously would only refuel the efforts to find survivors. If you find 5, perhaps there are more such miracles that are waiting out there. So word is spreading quickly through the rescue community here of what appears to be a miraculous discovery. And the efforts are now to try to find more people. But again, apparently this vehicle was parked outside of what we think was maybe the North Tower or Tower 1 of the World Trade Center.